Good afternoon, North Tama art students. Today I am going to be working with you guys and we are going to be creating a three-dimensional cube using our perspective and vanishing point along with shapes. What I want to show you guys is we will be making basically some of the similar things you've worked with before, which is a cube that's following vanishing point. But we are going to be making that so when viewed from a certain angle with the paper cut out, it looks like it's floating above the paper. We'll be using value, shapes, again our 1-point perspective with our vanishing point. We'll be using diagonal and also vertical lines to get this to look three-dimensional. I'm going to turn it so you guys can see how it looks on the camera. In order for this to work, we need to make sure that we have our shape that is cut out from the background paper. We have a cast shadow, and when viewed from the camera at a certain angle, so I'm going to turn this for you slowly and you can see, the camera is going to compress all of those lines, and with our shadow underneath and our paper cut out from the back, we get a three-dimensional optical illusion. Okay, so a really fun, simple thing you can do at home. I'll show you some pictures I took. You can also do some poses with it to make it look like it's floating. A lot of fun options as a prop here. Okay, so all you will need today to create this is any sort of paper you have, printer paper, could even be colored paper, really doesn't matter. You're going to want to make sure you have a ruler. If you don't have a ruler at home, you can use something similar that would have a straight edge, like a sheet of paper that you've cut, a piece of cardboard that you've cut straight, anything that has a straight edge. We're going to be using pencils, any type of pencil that you have at home, possibly a Sharpie you might need. And then if you have charcoal, you can use that. Otherwise, a black crayon, a black colored pencil, anything that will give you some dark color will work. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do when we are creating this is we are going to be starting with our diamond shape. I'll put this right here so you guys can follow along. Okay, so our diamond shape on my paper needs to be towards the top of my paper. Now when you're creating your diamond shape, you can always think about starting kind of in the middle. So I'm going to just make a dot about 2 finger lengths down from the top of my paper, and that's where my diamond will start. You don't necessarily need your ruler for this part. If you want to just freehand draw your diamond, that's fine too. You can free draw all of these lines. If you don't have a ruler, it'll just look a little bit different. It'll look more like a curved diamond shape if you don't have a ruler. Next thing I'm going to do is divide my paper into thirds. So if I have my paper, I look at it visually, I have 1, 2, and then 3. So I'm going to go to my bottom 2 thirds. So here's 1, here's 2. I'm going to place a dot in the middle of that bottom 2 thirds. That is how long my diamond shape will be. Okay? Next, I'm going to grab my ruler, and just as you've done in all of our perspective, okay, this is where I'm going to be drawing my lines towards. Okay? If you need to look for example, you can see my dot at the bottom of my 2 thirds of my paper is directly below the dot I started with for my diamond. Okay? I'm going to take my ruler, I'm going to line it up with the corners of my diamond and just draw it down. Okay? Same thing with my bottom part of the diamond. Line it up and draw it down. Now I'm on the other corner of my diamond. I'm going to line it up, draw it down. Okay? Now I'm going to make the bottom part of my diamond, or here the edges. In order to get that angle to be right, I'm going to follow the angle I created for my diamond first. And if you remember this in perspective, we often place our ruler on the angle and then drag it back so that we keep that same angle. And you're going to drag it about almost to your point there, about halfway. Okay? I'm going to go to the other side of the diamond to get my angle and keep that angle. Drag my ruler back until it lines up with my corner from the other side of my diamond. So here's the other side, here's the tip of the corner, and then I'm going to connect. Okay? So here's what I have so far. Again, if you want to go back and make any of your angles a little bit stronger with your ruler like I'm going to do right now, you can certainly do that. If you don't have a ruler, just do the best you can. All right, so now next thing I'm going to do is I want to erase my little guidelines that I put here, okay? Later we will put a shadow in there and you can hopefully see that from the example one. Draw light as you can there so that you don't have any erase marks. Okay, now next thing I'm going to do, if we look at my example, I'm going to go halfway through my diamond shape and I'm going to place my ruler horizontally and I'm just going to draw what would be the lines of a notebook paper. Okay, that just kind of helps to give it this idea that it's a shape floating above whatever you would have in your school notebook or something. Just helps give us some lines to follow, helps the perspective. As I'm doing this, make sure that I'm holding my ruler, make sure that I'm sighting that it looks about evenly spaced. You do not have to sit there and measure these, but just eyeball it so they look semi-even. Now that I'm past my diamond shape, I'm going to continue drawing till the bottom of my paper. Okay, so hopefully for those of you who remember making cities or objects in your dream rooms, this should look very similar, right? It's just an object coming out of the vanishing point. My vanishing point is just below it, and it is above it. So if you think about it that way, it's very much what we've been working with this year already. Okay, so I've made my little notebook paper lines. If you have a red marker at home, you can go ahead and make the little place where your hole punches would be in a notebook paper. If you don't have a red pen, you can just use your pencil again. Again, it just kind of helps to create a little bit of the optical illusion there. All right, now it's time for value. If I look at a cube has planes, right? It has different planes that make up the cube. It has different sides. So when light hits those different sides, it's going to hit them all in various values. For example, the top, because it's closer up or rising out of my paper in order for 3D to look right, this should be my lightest value, or white, the white of my paper. Any of my other planes, I could put the shadow on this side if I wanted to, okay? I just want to make sure that they are 3 different values represented here. That's going to help it look like it's in 3-dimensional optical illusion. So, for example, on the one side, whatever side you choose to make your darker side, you could color that in solid black if a marker is all you have. You could color that in your darkest value if you have a pencil. Okay. One side is just your darkest value. Okay, now you can leave it like that if you're fine with that. If you want to blend it, remember we've used blenders at school, don't have a blender at home, get a paper towel and just double fold it. So you can see I folded it several times here so that it's thick. And I'm just going to take that to smudge my charcoal into my shape. Now, if you get a little bit outside of the shape, charcoal erases just like pencil lead. So not a big deal. Just go back and clean up your edges. You do want them to be pretty sharp in order for the optical illusion to look more realistic. Okay, the next side, I'm going to take what I have smudged on my paper towel and use that to get my medium gray. Just a simple way to repurpose things, and I already have that on my paper towel anyways. Okay, I'm going to clean up the edges. Make sure your edges are crisp. If you remember that from making your buildings, you always want those edges to look crisp. It'll look more 3-dimensional that way. Okay, now if you have this at home, you can go ahead and take a Sharpie or any black marker really will work just fine, and outline the edges of your diamond. Again, this just helps with the perspective. I'm going to use my ruler here to kind of get this perfect. If you don't have a black marker at home, you can just leave it as a pencil drawing. That's fine too. Okay. So it's just going to help me to get my corners look a little bit more in perspective. Side there. Okay. Side there. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to add the cast shadow. If you look at my example, the cast shadow is just going to mimic the top of my diamond. Okay, what works best for this is something that you can smudge. A piece of chalk, charcoal pencil like I have, a piece of charcoal if you have some cool down charcoal from like a leftover fire or something and you've made sure that your parents checked that it was okay. That also smudges. It's where real charcoal comes from, so the leftover ash from sticks. So I'm going to just make that little mountain, and it's about 2 finger lengths below my diamond shape here. It's a little cast shadow, because if it's hovering, there'd be a little shadow under it. And take my double folded paper towel, and I'm going to smudge that mountain shape. And if you want to get really fancy, you can try and smudge it into sort of a diamond shape, again, because I'm mimicking my diamond up here. Okay. Now I'm going to get ready to cut this. Before I do that, I just want to clean up a little bit of my edges. Any eraser will erase charcoal just fine. Okay, so now the important part that you have to do to make this work even more is to cut out your unused space here, all right? So if I think of my first line that went through half of my diamond, that's where my paper ends in order for this optical illusion to work, okay? So what I'm going to do is take this off of here, okay? I'm going to cut along the top of my paper around my diamond shape, come back and go right to the next line that corresponds to my first line, okay? Take your time doing this. Remember, you can shadow cut. So as you can see, I'm kind of shadow cutting. You want to make sure you don't see any of this paper around your cube, all right? If you see the paper, the optical illusion will not work as well. Alrighty. So now I'm going to go back and cut super close onto my little cube shape there, so you cannot see any of my background. Take your time doing this. You only get one shot at cutting it. You can't really go back. So like I said, make sure you shadow cut it. Make sure you turn things around so that you can get a good angle to trim. All right, so now hopefully you can see I have cut that out there. I'm gonna go ahead and just trim this bottom of my paper a bit. And you can do this, or you could have made the lines all the way to the edge of your paper. Personal preference. Since I don't have a straight edge paper cutter at my house, you probably don't either. Sure would be nice. I just had to hand cut this. All right, so here's what we end up with. Now the fun part is you need to get a camera, and you are going to want to place this flat on a table in order for it to work, okay? So I'm going to place it flat on the table. I'm going to hold my camera right at like the eye level of the table. And you can see when you turn it, it starts to compress those shapes. And my vanishing point helps to make it look like it's floating above my paper, okay? You can do some fun little posing with this, make it look like you're pinching the cube, holding the cube, whatever you want to do. But fun little prop, fun little trick, easy to do at home. Please send me your pictures of your floating cubes. Thank you for watching.